Welcome to the third edition of Picking the Seam. You got me, Richard Garside, alongside my good mate, Arup.
Hello.
How's things, Arup?
Well, been better,
considering,
as you can imagine. Today we're going to be looking at the India-England series, which has concluded, much to my misery. England winning the series by drawing the game today, taking the series 2-1. We're going to be looking at what India need to do moving forward, owing to the fact that this is the first series that they've lost, I think, since 04-05, and the first time England have won since for a good 20-odd years, I think. So we'll be taking a look at what India need to do, and following that we'll also have a look back at the Bangladesh-West Indies series, which concluded.
We'll just wrap that one up, yeah.
So without much further ado, we'll have a look at the fourth test today in Nagpur.
Yeah, so that one finished today. Obviously, England only needed to draw that test to win the series, and they quite rightly batted out the time on that one. Didn't even declare, so they finished up 352 for 4. Jonathan Trott weighing in there with 143, and Ian Bell. Really, I'm sure will be pleased with this. He got 116 not out. So really, I mean, what a turnaround this series has been. I predicted it would be 2-1 to India, and I think you thought 2-0 India. And so from England to lose the first test in Ahmedabad, really they've just come storming back. But I think first we're just going to look at just the issues surrounding India. As the most powerful nation in cricket, I think there's a few questions which need to be asked. Well, I'd like to get your take on it, Arup.
Yeah.
A couple of things.
Of course.
And I think first, we've had question marks over Sachin during this series, or you quite rightly brought them up before the series. We've had question marks over Mahendra Singh Dhoni's captaincy. Mm-hmm. So what I just wanted to know is, who do you think is under threat now?
Well, that's a good question. I think Dhoni's captaincy is certainly under threat now. I mean, there has been several moments in the series where Dhoni's almost lack of willingness to really make bold decisions has cost him a little bit. And, no one can doubt his track record, but no one should be completely invincible in their job. Maybe it is time for a bit of fresh blood.
I mean, this is a guy who, if we can rewind before the 4-0 defeat in England, before the 4-0 defeat in Australia, this is a guy that when India were number one in the world, I think maybe world champions as well, we used to look at this guy and we used to think he's unflappable, he's untouchable. Yeah. The media can't get under his skin. Yeah. His players seem to respect him. And we almost thought, I'm not sure we ever thought we would get to this point.
It was a team that was playing in a different way as well. I mean, it's a team that was winning, I suppose, which makes a big difference. But in terms of results, he's been the most successful captain India have had. I mean, he's taken them to number one in the world in the tests. He's won the World Cup in T20. He's won the World Cup at 50 over. He's won everything there is to win for India. But on the back of the results that India have had in the past 12 months, notwithstanding a couple of sort of victories against the likes of the West Indies and New Zealand, India haven't performed well. And as a result of that, they have to make changes.
It's just natural that he's going
to come under fire. Yeah. And I think that whereas England in the past, or, if you are an Englishman, if you grow up in England, one of the sort of criticisms that often gets levelled at the team is that they chop and change too much. I think in India, it's perhaps on the other end of the spectrum. There is not enough chopping and changing going on. Whilst there is benefits to being like that, you do get to sort of batsmen feel comfortable or whatever, and then when they do well, they can do very well. But it does create problems like this. Complacency.
I mean, just to confirm, we're not, or maybe we are. I don't know. We're not. I wouldn't have thought we're questioning Dhoni's place in the side as a wicketkeeper batsman. I mean, he nearly made a ton. He
chipped in with runs in other places. I mean, I think he got 50 odd in another match as well. I mean, I think with the bat, he's actually he does what you can expect of someone who comes in where he does in the order.
Just thinking about who's under threat here. So we're saying Dhoni would still be worth his place as a batsman. Maybe even we'll move on to Sachin now.
Yeah. For Tendulkar, I mean, I said before the series began in the first podcast, and I'm saying it again now. He's got to go. He's had one score that's been in double figures this series. He's got a 76. All of his other scores were in single figures.
I mean, is it an idea? Well, if you look at the tests you've got coming up, you've got Australia, I believe, are touring India February, March of next year. Mm-hmm. I mean, is there a case for just saying to Sachin, this is your last hurrah against a very good test playing nation in Australia? if everything goes according to plan, he can contribute in that series and he can bow out gracefully. I wouldn't think anyone wants to see him go against his will.
I see what you mean, but I think that if he were picked for that purpose, that's made playing for his country or playing for one's country a tokenistic thing. And I understand that you should want a more dignified way of retiring, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen in a series where India are hosting Australia. I mean, India got panned 4-0 in Australia the last time they played them. They're hosting them now. What's to suggest that it's going to be a glorious victory and he's going to get 150 in the last day?
There's nothing to suggest that, and that's why it is a dilemma. I think maybe Sachin still plays one-day cricket, and I know that India, for the first time in a few years, are playing Pakistan. I think that's starting this month in a few one-days. And I'm thinking to myself, if he makes 100 or 2 in that series, maybe he'll just use that as the right time.
That would be perfect, I suppose.
And I mean, if he can win a couple of games for India against Pakistan, I think you can't ask for much more being an Indian batsman. Just finally, Aruba, are you going to highlight anyone else you think that may be losing their place as a result of...
I think Zahir Khan is maybe had his time.
They've got Yadav coming through.
Yadav's got pace. They need to nurture these bowlers as they always do. I think Sehwag, his place has got to be under threat because he hasn't performed. For me, he hasn't performed. He did well in Ahmedabad, I know, but as we said in that last podcast, that was against some atrocious bowling. It wasn't, England didn't bowl as bad as that in the rest of the series. And the material factor in this series has just been, I think that the team hasn't played as well as they should have played, and also it's shown that complacency can only be combated with change. For me, I look at that team and I see Gambhir, I see Sehwag, I see Sachin.
This is definitely going to be a transitional period that's coming up in India.
Big time.
In terms of England, you can just have nothing but praise for England. Before the series, I was worried it could be a bit boring.
We edited that out, actually.
Yeah, we edited it out.
Of the first podcast.
Thanks for that.
There was a brief discussion in the first podcast, or the recording of it, about how series in India are generally boring. But I knew it was going to be such a ludicrous suggestion.
I've really enjoyed this series. I think the pace of the cricket has been very different from series in England or Australia, but that's been good.
The pace of life is different over there, man. It's just a different thing,
Yeah. And just to return to one of the series which we touched on was Bangladesh hosting West Indies, and now that series is finished. West Indies won that 2-0. Sorry, they won both of those tests. We both said 1-1 in that.
Yeah, so we did.
I think it's time to recognise, West Indies, not the force of the 70s or 80s. By any stretch of the imagination, but they're improving.
At the end of the first test, like in the last podcast, we were talking about how West Indies won the test, granted, but Bangladesh did have a lot of positives to draw from it, and that we thought that it would be quite a close match this time around, didn't we? But West Indies have absolutely steamrolled them.
And to be honest, I don't think those Bangladeshi batsmen like facing genuine pace on any surface.
I mean, the West Indian middle order at the moment is absolutely packing in the runs. I mean, in that particular match, Marlon Samuels picked up 260.
Flying Samuels.
Ridiculous score. And Shiv Chandimal chips in again with a not out, 150. So the West Indies have got so many positives in the batting, which is great. Because you don't often say that about the West Indies. We haven't said that for a while. So the West Indies, after this tour, going forward, they've got... they've got an ODI series in Australia, but in terms of tests, they're hosting Zimbabwe in March for 2 tests, and then they're hosting Sri Lanka for 2 tests, and Pakistan for 2 tests. I think that these
win those.
They can win those tests. 3 test series at home. If they win those 3 on the bounce, you've got to say that they're going to be shooting up the rankings, aren't they?
Yeah, I want to see them win. I want to see them improve. I love the West Indies, just their brand of cricket.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't want to see the West Indies do well?
Who doesn't? So that brings the 3rd episode of Picking the Seam to a close. From myself, Orup Sen, and my good friend Richard Gosford.
Yeah, see you next time.
See you next time.